Welcome back to the new season of randInt with
That's right.
fresh podcasters ready to go after a well-earned break, I guess, because we made some episodes before. I think that's earned.
Well, I mean, considering this started off as a random project, I think that's well earned nonetheless. And also, I just didn't want to do anything for a little bit. So welcome back to season 2. We debated hotly as to whether we should be episode 23 or should we just go with season 2, episode 1. And we decided that since season 1, episode 1 was so interesting, we're just going to have a clean slate and call it episode 1 of season 2.
And if you've only just started listening now, maybe don't worry about listening to episode 1. Start with 2.
No, I think you need like episode 2 or 3, actually.
Yeah, just start later. Just start from now and go backwards.
Basically, the audio quality improves drastically a bit later on.
And we also learned not to eat food while podcasting.
All right. Anyway, so it's been, what, 3 weeks, a month since we last had a chat?
It has been, indeed. So Raffy, how are you?
Well, it's been interesting. So I think since the last time we spoke, the plan was that there was going to be a hard burn for work up until, because I always end up working Christmas because, you know, like basically the Muslims and the Jews cover up until there. And then New Year's, I always take off. And that's just like, it actually really works well because then the people who are celebrating and actually have stuff to do during Christmas get to do it. And then during the year, I take Eid off and no one complains. So it like works pretty well. Yeah, so the point was to actually work up until New Year's Eve and then take 2 weeks off and go away and actually rest and recharge. And one of our mutual friends decided that he actually wanted to work on New Year's Eve. So our orthopedic friend had a list on, which I thought was going to be cancelled. But anyway, so we worked up until that point. In terms of the first week, I wanted to go away, but my cousin was meant to be getting married, maybe possibly because family were meant to be coming down from Queensland. So, and they kept on shifting the dates by like, it was either going to be the Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and kept on changing because they were doing, anyway, stuff that I couldn't worry about, but it was beyond my control. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to stay local. Just because if family are here a bit earlier, I want to actually spend some time with them because I haven't seen some of them in like a couple of years. So that was the plan. Because of Omicron, everything got cancelled. Family didn't come. So I decided, you know, I didn't have any plans for that week. So I've never actually tried sitting at home and just watching Netflix, like not doing anything productive, not coding, not trying to get through a to-do list, not going, oh, I'll learn something. This is like what I'd normally do, right?
What?
Yeah. Like I said, don't go for a hike, go get your coffee, maybe go for brunch, but then come home and just sit at home. I just wanted to, essentially what I was trialing is how bad would isolation be if for whatever reason I was so tired that I couldn't actually go and do the stuff that I wanted to do, be it learn stuff. Like if I was, you know, sometimes you're so sick, you just, nothing goes into your head.
True.
Right? Like normally if you're that sick, you're just going to sleep it off. But, you know, I'll get bored of that. So I thought, you know, why don't I just see what it's like to binge watch Netflix for a week and just really go to slob mode. Does not work for me.
Oh, really?
Because
how long did you last as slob?
No, I actually pushed through. I did like a solid 6 days.
I like it. It's like, no, I'm dedicated. I'm going to do this. I will use every attention. I will be a slob.
Well, it kind of was because by day 5, I was like itching to go for a long walk, but I wasn't allowed. Like I could go for short walks, but you know, like 20 minutes, half an hour.
Some DVTs. Okay, sure.
Yeah, like as in that, I would say if I had a normal flu and it wasn't Omicron or something, that's how much as I do, right? So it was more of a trial, but so the things I was tracking was my sleep better or worse, like using the Aura Ring, etc. And it turns out it does F all to any of the metrics. it is no
Huh.
different to if I was just going to work,
Hmm.
right? Like
So
very
not more
little,
relaxed.
well, little things here and there. Like I just slept in because I could, like that was
Yep. Fair.
nice. But resting heart rate didn't change. Heart rate variability dropped,
Hmm.
which is a marker of not being rested. Like baseline temperature, everything else like basically the same, right? Anyway, so the entire point was that week. If the wedding happened, it was going to be the weekend, but because it didn't happen, like a couple of catch ups here and there that I plugged in just to catch up with friends I hadn't seen in a while. And then this week was meant to be. So actually, this Monday I was meant to be doing one list because a lot of my group were away. So I was meant to just do one day and then fly away and actually have a proper holiday and come back later. We were meant to be doing this episode until next week because I was meant to be on a plane coming back right now.
Where were you supposed to be right now?
Well. So let's go to Monday first. So by the time the end of my slob week came around, Omicron had just spiked. And so my morning list on the Monday got cancelled. Then I was at the gym half an hour before I had to go to the afternoon list, and the surgeon kept like there was an unknown number calling, and eventually the surgeon goes, "Oh, it's me. Can you call me back?" And he's like, "Oh, I was literally about to leave and come to the list, but I just thought I'd do a rapid test, and I'm positive." So
Uh-oh.
yeah, so I had like an afternoon kind of unexpectedly off. But the weird thing was
Hmm.
because I was already in today's a work day, right? If I
Hmm.
sat at home, it would have not felt like a day off. So I made myself go for a long walk to this random, I got my little electric scooter and I rode it all the way to Richmond to get like a chicken sandwich because there was this shop that has it called Hector's Deli. Just because I knew if I did something like that, then it would feel like a holiday day because it's not something I do every day. But if I just went and did day-to-day stuff, I would still be like today's a work day mode.
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
yeah. So anyway, and during that time, I was meant to be in Norfolk Island. So it's literally if you imagine Brisbane,
What
and
is Norfolk Island?
yeah. So I'd only heard of it. I'd never really realized where it was, and I'm glad I didn't go now. So Brisbane, draw a line all the way across, and Auckland, Wellington in New Zealand, draw a line
Oh,
all the way up. So
huh.
it's actually like about 100 kilometers off from French Polynesia. So that's the
Hmm.
closest country. But somehow it's still
Okay.
technically Canberra
Right.
because they
Australia.
tried to have yeah. Well, they were like an autonomous region, but it's too small to have a government. So then they decided to join ACT. And supposedly when ACT went into lockdown, they were meant to go into lockdown as well. Because
Because that makes sense.
I don't think they actually did. But what happened was in the first week, they announced they had 3 cases, and that was their trigger for locking down and not allowing any visitors
Hmm.
into the island. Because they don't actually have a hospital. They don't actually have PCR
Yeah.
testing
Can see
facilities.
how it's a problem.
Yeah. And the other thing was because it's so small, they wouldn't let anyone go in to begin with. But if you think about it, all the shops shut down, all the restaurants shut down. And if you're a local, then you have supplies because that's how you normally live. But if you're visiting, you probably can't do anything except for go for a walk,
Hmm.
right?
True.
So I was kind of half prepared for that because it's a small town, small island, remote. So I was like, okay, closer to home. If that shuts down, I'm going to go to King Island. Literally started making bookings when a friend sent me a text going, "Have you seen that King Island's got like an outbreak of 30 people?" I was like, crap. So I was emailing like accommodation and stuff anyway, and no one was getting back to me. And the car hire people called me back like 4 days after the fact. And so I was like, well, by that stage, it was too late anyway. But because of their outbreak, you just couldn't get things. Like you couldn't hire a bike or like no one was responding. So
Hmm.
so I was like, okay. So then lastly, I had Flinders Island, which is right next to, so these two are in between the mainland of Australia and Tasmania. So Flinders Island, I thought, okay, no outbreaks, all good. But by the time I got around to looking there was 2 places to stay at. One was a shack at the back of a farm. And
That
after
sounds fun.
our, well,
Except there may be friendly visitors.
yeah, so, and this place didn't look remotely as nice as the place that we stayed at. So I was like, not
Right.
really that keen. Um, And the only other place was this luxury villa that was 14 grand, and I still want my kidneys, thanks. So, and that was only for four or five nights, because by that stage I didn't have that much time left.
Right.
So I decided, you know what, and I could have gone to Queensland or like just said YOLO or whatever, but considering I haven't been trying to check my emails, but sometimes the headlines come through. Our department is just effed.
Oh,
Well,
can imagine it's not ideal.
Well, last time I haven't looked at the updates because, again, on holidays. So we had like 8 senior consultants down, and something in the hospital system, in my hospital network anyway, something like 80 or 90 junior medical staff, and all like a decent chunk of nurses. So
wow, that
on
put
Friday,
a big strain on everybody else.
Well, so they were looking for today and yesterday, so Saturday and Sunday, for consultants, like specialists, to be available to look after emergency and the wards at one of the hospitals, which is like this small, almost rehabby one. And I was like, what are we meant to do? Like, there's no operating there. There hasn't been any operating for, So it was literally to help out in emergency, putting drips in, charting up fluids, or drawing up and giving drugs, because there's just no one. Like, they're asking allied health staff
for context,
to just
usually something that the junior medical staff who are unwell would be doing.
And your reception's pretty poor again.
Workforce, it sounds like. Oh no,
your phone reception's dropping off.
Come on.
Oh, it's back again. I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
It must be an Apple thing.
Welcome to country WA. We may not have Omicron, but we don't have reception either.
Yeah, well, that's why, because you don't have any 5G.
This is true.
But yeah, so at the moment, the allied health staff are getting asked to feed patients and like just look after pressure areas. This is like what nurses would normally do, but yeah, it's a bit ridiculous as to how many people are off sick, or people have been working double shifts already, and no one, like, you can only do it for so long before you so it's not looking forward to going back tomorrow.
Thank you for your service.
But yeah, so anyway, holidays got totally Omicron, so I decided, you know what, I can't waste another week. So I decided what I'm going to do, especially after realizing that just being a slob at home just doesn't work for me. Like, it's actually not restful. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to try and do the things that I normally do on holiday and see what's useful. Like, is it going out and
useful
eating?
For what particularly?
For recharging, because I'm just assuming that if Omicron's happened and this was very rapid and very sudden, that there's going to be another wave. So I can keep waiting for a holiday where I got to go away. But in case it doesn't happen for another year, I've decided that, for the first, January, February, it's planning for 2022. Should have done it as a New Year's thing, but, the world's a bit crazy. It's like, all right, well, let's just assume this is just how it's going to be for the next 3 to 5 years. Let's just make it really depressing. And so I was like, all right, well, if that was the case, what would I do differently? I'm like, well, okay, I want to see what part of the holiday is actually restful. Like, how do I make it efficient? If I'm stuck at home with limited range, what's the thing that actually makes me recharge? So then I was like, all right, let's put biometrics on everything, and then go, okay, I'll go to new places to eat. I'll go to the movies and have a really chilled out day, but not just stuck at home. So I went to the movies by myself, to watch Spider-Man. Then one of the other days I was like, all right, let's go for a hike, right? And then this morning, it was very random. I decided to just go, okay, today's adventure day. So I'm just gonna, I booked a heli flight for sunrise, right? So they're kind of like different elements. Like, I would, if I went away, try and do like some sort of photography related thing, like a super early, or like, when we went to Tassie, we barely slept,
sunrise photos,
hiked up. Yeah, and then we did it again at night.
It's just around the corner. Somebody took me to a car park and was like, it's 4 a.m. You've got your full camera backpack. Don't worry, this lookout is just 5 minutes up there, 5 minutes around the mountain.
Yeah. Would you have come otherwise?
No, God, no. every turn and every boulder. It's just around the next boulder. Don't worry.
I can't
Was a
believe
good
you fell for it.
sunrise though. I know.
But anyway, so I looked at, I mean, today's stuff, I haven't quite got the full readings for, but today I was just tired because, yeah, didn't sleep until, well, we've been playing Dota every night as well.
But we would like to, our defense is that a lot of our friends who also play have been getting COVID. Therefore, we need to keep them company in their time of difficulty and stuff. So, and they were not nice enough to get COVID at the same time. One gets COVID, they get better than the next one does. So then we have to keep them company while they're locked down. So
That's
there's
been
a
the
small
excuse.
hospital online of computer games.
Yeah, so of all the things so far, the biggest thing that had a dramatic, noticeable upswing in terms of restfulness markers was the hike. So I went to Yuyangs, which is only an hour away from here, and the total hike was only about 2 hours. But that is the only day where you see this massive upswing in heart rate variability and a dampening of like heart rate. Like
Interesting.
to the point where it's like stands out. You look at the graph and you're like, that's the day, whatever that date was. None of the others made that much of an impact. So I wonder if it's like that Japanese word, I can't remember what it's called, but it's called like
forest
nature bathing.
thing.
Yeah.
There is a word for it, but it's a thing. It'd be interesting to see, is it the being in nature or is it just the going for a walk for a couple of hours?
Shinrin Yoku.
Right, that.
Shinrin Yoku. Well, here's the thing. So I think it's genuinely being out in nature because I have done long walks around the city because this week I went back to normal mode. And if I wanted to do long walks and I started running, and I also went and did my little, scooter ride around to Richmond and whatnot. That took like 2 hours because I found another scenic spot to eat. I wasn't exerting per se, but it was kind of like hot, sweaty. It felt like exercise. I wanted to come have a nap afterwards. So I think there's something to be said for this Shinrin Yoku because, yeah, that was the only time where it was outside my normal sort of environment, but it was also just nature, no sounds of anything else, hardly any cars, and just climb up a mountain. And
it's an interesting experiment because I've never tried that, and also specifically looked at tracking metrics because whenever I've sort of previously I was doing sort of every 6 weeks take a break kind of holiday as a plan, and I found for me the thing that helped the most was actually just not having anything planned for the day and mostly just meditating, sitting by the beach, and that worked for me quite well. And I know in the past what I have found is when I do actually meditate for some time, longer than I would normally, then yeah, I do actually feel a bit calmer. But I've never actually tried checking heart rate variability specifically, on the day and the day after to see what has an impact. It'd be super interesting to, for example, try meditating at the beach versus in a forest versus just at home and seeing which of those changes your heart rate variability more. That would be interesting.
So that was the other thing. I have also like this week have been basically meditating at least 5 minutes every day, no difference except for the hike. And the other thing is, I don't think anyone should do this because in normal times you wouldn't need to, but I'm just being a pessimist and going, man, that's like 3 holidays in a row where it's been Delta and Omicron'd and everything else before it. So I'm just going to have to assume that my normal.
All I'm going to say is, while I can still say this, WA.
Yeah, well, some of us are unfortunate have been snuck in when we could. But the main thing I wanted to get is if I have an unstructured day, which is my be a slob kind of a day, like I actually find I'm more stressed. Like if I don't schedule little things in, yeah, I can't turn off like the type A had to have hike scheduled in for it to like, it takes me like 3 to 4 weeks to get out of that mode. And if you're only having short holidays, it's just not long enough. So I have to actually go with, let's schedule in something that is relaxing. And that's what this experiment was. And surprisingly,
and you break up the monotony in a brief period of time without having 4 weeks off.
And the only reason I'm checking heart rate variability is I didn't even think that this was actually going to be accurate. And I don't understand how it is. But when I got the Oura Ring, it was initially for COVID-related things because there was this early study showing that you can get the baseline body temperature difference, like your baseline body temperature would rise faster than
Hey, that'll
you
be
had
interesting for
symptoms.
when you do get COVID. I mean, if you get COVID.
Well, so the thing is, the days that I've had the boosters are the only ones where there's been a deviation. So I think there actually is something to it. Before I felt ordinary, you could see the little baseline spike. So I think
This
it actually
sounds like a work expense to me.
Well, genuinely, I only got it because I was like, I've got enough trackers. I don't really need it. But it was the only one that San Francisco was using as an actual device during their first line responders. So like, all right, before it sells out, I'll buy it. But I was showing someone else like just the graphs, and I noticed that you could see the heart rate variability, and it was smack bang on the weeks that I was taking holidays, like in between lockdowns.
That it would get better.
Yeah, it would spike up every time. Like, so it was like 2 holidays to country Victoria that I went to, it would spike up. And I didn't actually recognize this until I went, hang on, that's when I went on break. That's when I went on break. And that's when I went away. Like, what the hell? And then I tracked and it's like, and then I was like, well, I took a week off here and I was sitting at home. It kind of barely went up. I'm like, that's interesting. Like, that actually correlates really well to how I was feeling. Like, that's when I was feeling really, really shit. Like, when I was just before like the next, because usually I time my holidays to be after a big sprint of work. And it correlated beautifully. They're like, okay, it works. I don't quite get it, but it works, so I'll track it.
I've definitely found I've looked through my heart rate variability data as well. But for me, I found that it really hasn't made a difference as to what I've been doing at the time, but it's been much more related to what exercise I've been doing at the time. And for example, over the last year, I've been trying to be reasonably strict with 3 times a week. And because I'm lazy, rather than trying to force myself to go have a PT appointment, which means it's an appointment, it's on my calendar, it happens. But more recently, and there's been certain times where I've sort of added on a bit of swimming. And because I'm super duper unfit, if I do a lap, then my heart rate goes up to like 180. So I get like max heart rate in a lap. And I have found during the months where I've done a bit more swimming, that's when my heart rate variability seems to be up the most. And it's been a slow trend in those months, whereas whether I'm on leave or unemployed or employed does not seem to make as much of a difference.
I think this is a very specific thing for me right now because I haven't really had normal break in now 2 years. So I think this is kind of, if you think about it, it's like cortisol overdrive. It's just been this baseline stress that's been there this entire time. Because as much as I like it or not, like, we're vaccinated, we're wearing N95s, but I still have to do the COVID intubations. I have to do the high risk stuff. Like, I'm not emergency and I'm not intensive care, so they're probably even higher on the list, but I'm also not you're not really likely to have COVID. I'm getting the other side where it's emergency cases, no one knows, we just got to gown up or assume, and it can be at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, half the ones I've tubed have been 3 o'clock in the morning, like where you're not fully on, and you come home and you're like, did I wash my hands?
Did I wear a mask?
Did I do that properly? Like, so because during the first wave, every time I did a COVID tube, I would then go and shower and then get changed into new scrubs and go to work because like I didn't want to spread.
Whereas
to
now,
colleagues.
I imagine every case would be a COVID tube or a large
well,
chunk of them.
Yeah, you got to treat it
assume.
as you can't really do anything for it. And the other thing is, it's just everyone's tired, and your normal number of nurses aren't there. Your ratio, like, these are not normal working conditions anymore. Like, normal standards do not apply. So it's like this baseline level of stress because like, I don't feel stressed, but if you look at all the markers, I think it's there, and it's a compounding slow burn. So it's kind of like fatigue. You don't notice it because you've just slowly gotten there. But I think
it's slowly boiled frog.
Yeah. So it's exactly that. So I think the difference between you and I at the moment is because you went to WA, and that's been very normal compared to the rest of Australia. Well, compared to the East Coast. So I think that's why it's been like a market different response. And this little experiment was like, let's just assume that I'm a pessimist because, after 2 years, what can you do? I still need some data for how should I relax next time, you know? And I think if I have to stay in Victoria, I know I just have to plan for go to the Grampians or go to Bright, find somewhere in the middle of somewhere. That's not a tiny shack that has lots of spiders.
Hey, we should check the heart rate variability after that.
I do not think I slept very well.
Is a glass box in the wood covered with spiders good for heart rate variability or bad? There's an experiment.
Yeah. So anyway, so yeah,
I'd also
that's
be keen
been
to hear if anybody else has been tracking their heart rate variability to see what they've found as to what affects it the most for them. Is it exercise or is it stress related things? Because a
or
lot
any
of
other
the data
markers.
on, because a lot of heart rate variability data is relatively new. And from the studies I was looking at, they're pretty bad studies.
Yeah, I didn't expect it to, because like one of our other friends, Lahiru, he was saying it was like, isn't it just a measure of hydration? I'm like, yeah, but I think, see, the thing is, this is in anesthetics, you look at heart rate variability for dehydration stuff, but you're fasting someone, so like you get a pulse pressure variation like on outlines, but those things are for someone that you fasted for 6 hours, who is having a, like you're doing all these physiological things, so you exaggerate the response, not well fully awake, sympathetic toned
Maybe
people.
that's the next experiment to try. Drink some more water and see if it affects your heart rate variability.
Well, I haven't looked at hydration per se, but I wasn't
So I guess
really.
at the end of the day, if you don't change your hydration, but you're more stressed, less stressed, and it changes, then it's
Like there
reasonable
wasn't
to use.
any difference to any other day, sort of a thing. But yeah, so that was, it's been interesting. But I wonder if anyone else is into this whole quantified self stuff. Have they found any other markers? Because I did notice when I was doing, I was just checking blood pressures every 3 months, just randomly.
Interesting.
There was a period where, because normally I'm actually low, I'm sitting at about 110. It went up to like 140 consistently. And I went to see the GP for the first time just as a, like checkup sort of a thing. And like I actually get white coat hypertension.
Oh,
I
interesting.
don't know why.
Well, doctors are pretty scary, man. You gotta be.
No, he's like the nicest guy, but yeah, I actually went up to like 140. Then he left the room and it dropped. And I was like, okay, this makes no sense to me. I've done it to myself.
Doctors are scary.
Yeah, just like, man, how many times have I, like, I don't even understand why it would be high, but yeah, I get it. So I was like, okay, interesting thing.
Can't say I've tried that experiment before.
Well, it wasn't even an experiment. I was like, hang on, what do you mean it's 140? He's like, yeah, 140 on 100. I'm like, really? Okay. Like maybe I shouldn't have had the coffee. Then he left the room and it dropped by like 20. So like 120 on 80. I'm like,
this is a problem if you get white coat hypertension and you work in a hospital.
But then I've tried it by
works,
myself in hospital while I was at work. Like I think I was on a break, so I just got one of the machines to put it on, and it's like sits at 110 on 70. So I don't know. Anyway, what have you been up to? That was been a very long rant on my side.
Well, things in the magical land of WA are pretty amazing. Except there was a case, and therefore we had to wear masks.
You guys have 2 cases now.
Oh, what? Really? Oh, man.
Yeah, you have 2 local cases and 1 interstate case today. I've been checking. I'm waiting for Omicron to come.
Everyone's like, come on, WA.
Well, I mean, everyone was hoping it for Queensland and it happened. So then we're like, yes, only one state left to go.
One of us. Well, I think it will be interesting once things properly open up here in February. But in the meantime, I'm just trying to be trying to enjoy as much as I can. Officially, I'm now back to working, which feels strange after a little while of not working. Has been a good 2 or 3 months. Actually.
Oh, when did you actually stop working in 2021?
The end of September. That's like, it's a good 3 months not working.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. So it is kind of weird now to be back to working every day and not just rolling out of bed at 10 in the morning. It's been a tough adjustment period. But I've survived. I have made it work. I've discovered these things called alarms.
Oh
Strange.
no. Oh man, that's like I should have just quit and gone to WA. That's like, oh, it'd have been nice and relaxing.
So I did try to enjoy that as much as I could. But yeah, nowadays it's just sort of getting back into a little bit of a rhythm of yes, working, which I'll mostly be doing for a good chunk of this year. So trying to find good habits again, just so that I can make it a good year without killing myself. Because also during time off, that just means I do more other project work. And so trying to work full time and sustain all of the other project as well at the same time is not ideal. So that's actually one of the things we'll chat later about. But I have been sort of trying to limit the number of things that I do in each of the months to pick a few things that I prioritize, and those are the ones that I'm allowed to do after hours, basically, so that I do try to have a little bit of downtime as well to make it sustainable without getting burnt out.
Yeah, and we're becoming old people, man. We can't keep doing the late nights.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because it's like, really, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday? Is that working hard? Wait, what?
Oh, because even this morning, because I woke up earlier and we were playing Dota late last night, I needed like multiple naps for me to be awake enough. So like, yeah, recovery is getting to the point where I'm like, I can't keep pushing it. Like I've had my time of, actually, I've had decades of going at 4 hours sleep and it's been fine. So I think
it's definitely been a change.
Yeah, and I'm glad. Like, you know, it's like
before, no problems, no sleep. One day it's fine. You can do that for a couple of days, but eventually catches up.
Oh, like I mean, up until say maybe 3 years ago, I could do it for a while. Like I'm talking months, but yeah, it's really gone downhill. But I feel like I've done my time. I don't need to prove that anymore.
Hopefully, it's not necessary anymore. Is the other thing as well.
There's more spring chickens out there, and I just don't. Yeah. Anyway, now before we get too carried away. Yeah. Oh, do you have more?
Well, the most important thing recently that I've done is camp in a Tesla.
Oh, how was that?
That was awesome. So
how many spiders did you have to kill?
I had 0 spiders to kill, but I did have some animals in the morning, which I will tell you about.
Oh, okay.
But initially, I was planning to get this special mattress that's designed for the back of the Tesla. So with the Teslas, basically, you can fold the seats down and they fold fairly flat. And one of the nice things is basically you've got this massive glass roof above you to watch the stars and outside. And you're in a climate controlled cabin, basically, with a gigantic battery sitting under you. So you can run climate control all night with no problems and charge up your phone and whatever you want and have music, etc. And one of the things that I saw which looked really cool is you can get a mattress, which is specifically designed for the size of it. And I thought, oh, that'd be a great idea. But it's quite expensive. It was like a good $500. And it was out of stock as well. Well, there was a fancy one, which is like $1,000. And it was out of stock. So I was like, I'll wait for it to come back. And I was just about to order one. Then I was like, you know what? I'll just take the quilt from this bed, take that into the car, and I'll just sleep on half the quilt and put the other half on top of me. And that'll do. See what happens. It was great. No problems at all.
So where'd you go?
Yeah, so what I did is I basically drove the car out to a car park next to the beach because I thought, you know what would be nice? Waking up at the beach. So
I thought you basically did this in your apartment car park because that doesn't sound like.
No, that sounds like not the bestest idea. So instead, I drove out. Initially, I went to one place, but then it turned out that was like the on-ramp for four-wheel drive access to the beach. And so I thought, okay, there's a lot of traffic coming in and out here. That'll be annoying at night. And there was a light nearby as well. So I was like, okay, keep driving. And I got to some other random beach in the middle of nowhere, and it was getting a bit dark. So there was some signs that I couldn't really read, and I was like, whatever, it should be right. It's just a car park next to the beach, and from the car you can see the ocean. I was like, this is great. And it was really nice.
No camping?
Well, it didn't actually say no camping there. Instead, I woke up, and in the morning there was a whole bunch of people that were unloading their horses from their trailer next to me sleeping. Turns out that the sign said, "This is the horse access beach." And it's the access point for people who want to ride their horses on the beach. So all of these people are just stopping by, unloading their horses. They go for a ride on the beach, and I'm just there in my Tesla having a nap.
with nice transparent glass roof and glass everywhere, just so that from the
It
top
was
of the
great
horse.
because I was like, this is beautiful. I've got a great view of the sky and the night sky and everything. But of course, the disadvantage is everyone's got a nice view in too. It's like, good thing I was wearing pants today.
Yes.
Otherwise, there might have been some
drives...
traumatized horse riders.
This is why we have Tesla in work mode. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can only see his top half because he never drives with pants on. Never asks for a...
Like all Zoom meetings nowadays. Right now, this is also being recorded from the Tesla office, as we've discussed many times.
Never ask for a lift from Chandra. Never ask for a lift from Chandra.
It's always safe. Trust me.
All right.
So that's something I'm planning to do more of this this year.
Any specific locations?
Yeah. So what I found is that there's a whole bunch of camping site. There's like a camping site app. I think it was a Hip Camp or something like that. But you can search for camping sites and you can search for powered RV sites as well. So essentially, and some of them just look to be spots on someone's farm where they might have put some power or some facilities or whatever.
Sounds like Spider Town.
Well, this is why you keep the doors closed.
I went and got my cabin filters changed because I was like, these need, like, I can't trust it anymore.
All those spider eggs in your car.
I literally have a can of Mortine in my front passage, like my front handle. And like, no, this is the most essential thing I need.
Essential items.
Yeah.
So that's my travel plans for this year is Tesla camp. And I figured it should be reasonably COVID safe from the perspective of all I'm doing is just driving out to somewhere that I can go to sleep.
I think by the time like March, April comes around, unless there's a new variant, I think, within Australia, everywhere is going to be roughly the same. And hopefully the whole
WA is kind of on the foot end of it because, it'll happen and then it'll be bad for the first couple of months, I'm sure, in Feb and March. So,
so like by April, I think it'll be back to normal. I'm hoping, fingers crossed.
Says episode 3, 2022.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Now, one loose end, the iPhone saga. How's that going?
Well, we should actually to give a little bit of backstory. This is one of our listeners phoned in and left a voice message for us. Just a subtle hint there. Anybody that wants to leave a voicemail, and they gave us 2 broken iPhones.
Like pretty freaking smashed.
Yeah, one of them I saw and was like, wow, is there like an iPhone left? Anyway, turned out there was. And so the deal was that we get to, if we can fix them and sell them, then we can use that as a charitable donation somewhere. And it turns out both of those iPhones actually sold for a reasonable amount. So got the iPhones, got them all fixed up again, and both have now been sold. And we got a total of $600 in cash from it, which is not too bad.
How much did it cost to fix?
I think it was like $100 for one and $200 for the other, but all in, everything all done, we got $600 of profit from those. So thank you, listener, for sending them in. And now that we have the proceeds from it, we've got to decide what to do with it.
Well, actually, so on that note, she's happy for us to actually do whatever, but I thought, why not ask for a message? Or on Spotify, I'll leave a little poll, because if you're listening on the Spotify app on the phone, you can actually have a poll for like a response question to it. It's like a neat feature.
There we go. All right.
Also, Spotify now has ratings, so please rate our episodes or podcast. No, it's by podcast. So podcast.
And by rate, we mean rate them well, please.
Yes. Or on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening, because we're trying to, as we'll get to, the next thing we were going to talk about is new things to expect in season 2. And the first is that we will finish this iPhone saga by finally donating it to a charitable cause. But if you had any other random requests, this is the randInt podcast. This is the place to come to see if we can do anything. So there'd be broken goods that we can donate and repair, or repair then donate, or any other sort of weird projects.
Well, that sounds like that might lead into the other weird project that we've also been requested.
Yeah, I'm gonna call this one Doctor Wants a Hubby. So I kind of briefly mentioned it at the end of season 1, where it was like the question that made me kind of reassess what I thought of myself, because someone legitimately came up to me and was like, hey, you should set me up with people. It's like, the hell? Like, do I seem like that sort of a person? I want to be a hermit in a cave. Like, I don't want to talk to people. But
are you sure you just scream that you've got that, I will find you a matchmaking,
yeah,
matchmaking auntie,
yeah, well, as much as I am brown, I have never really considered myself a people person. Like, I suppose, like, being a doctor, you gotta be to an extent, but nothing amazingly out of the ordinary. But anyway, no, I clarified. She's serious. She was like, yeah, no, like, if there's and you know how there's some people who are very nitpicky and they have like a whole list of things, and then some people who just say they're easy with whatever. I'm like, no, you're not. You just haven't figured out where the hard lines are, right? So as much as I could get, all she said was it has to be male and practicing Muslim. I was like, okay. And she's like, oh, I don't really care about profession or age. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just gonna put up an age range of 30 to 35. And that's as far as I've gotten. So if there's any listeners out there, like,
are you a male practicing Muslim in the general region of 30 to 35?
Yeah, or maybe a bit younger. I don't actually know how old she is, so I'm just gonna go maybe 28 to 35. Why not? She's not telling me, so I'm just gonna
keep it vague. Let's keep it vague.
Yeah, all right. Well, I mean, hey, if no one's gonna give me specifics, we can play with it all we want. But or you, like, I've never tried this. Not my forte. It really made me question what sort of vibes I was giving out, going, I am not that uncle.
Well, there you go. The randInt podcast, where there is a lot of randomness.
But like, I'm sure there's got to be, because, like, your sister probably knows people, and I think she listens. And yeah, so I'm genuinely curious. So, like, podcast@photosbyraffi.com, randint.com actually works, not with www, by the way, for whatever reason. So we should actually change our email address at some point. But at the moment, it's podcast@photosbyraffi.com. So send it and it'll go to both of us. And we'll see what we can do, or leave us a message if you, like, I don't know how to proceed with this, but that is going to be a segment until things get sorted out.
I feel like we need a referral to a curry auntie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I don't want to use existing. So the things that I thought of, which we'll see how this initial call to plan goes. But like, there's like the mosques that I know and the people in them. There's, my mum and other curry aunties from my family. But I feel like we're just kind of in that age too far. Like, we're past that age. But anyway, it'll be interesting. I'm actually genuinely curious, and I want to see how this ends. Like, I want to see how our podcast goes.
Well, when we were sitting in your living room eating, starting episode number 1, I did not see this coming.
Yeah, right. Like, yep, neither did I. And the other things to look out for in season 2 that are going to be slightly different is, as we mentioned last time, we're going to try and get more interviews, because we found those were pretty interesting, and other people, like, a lot of the comments we were getting,
both interesting for us to be able to do them and get better at our interview technique. And I think a lot of listeners found it quite interesting to hear a bit of a range of people who, they still seem to, we did have some similar threads, I think, through the different interviewees. But yeah, I think interviews is something that we definitely want to try to focus on.
Well, that was the thing. Most of the feedback were from the interview episodes more than any of the other ones. So it seems like people really like those. So yeah, so we've got a small list of potential guests, but if you have any suggestions, this is also podcast at photosbyraffi.com, or leave us a voicemail, or many different ways, reach out on social, and we'll see what we can do. And this is where the whole reviews and ratings and share and like blah blah, whilst I'm not a big fan of it, this is how we'll probably be able to get bigger guests on the show. So if there is someone, we can actually try and coordinate it. But one of the things is we're a small podcast. So like we did have that random person reach out who then I emailed back, who then never responded. So like, okay. Anyway, yeah. So if there's any guests that you guys would want, we're looking for suggestions, or if you think you'd be a good fit, or you have or you think that we could get some random tidbits out of you, just let us know. We'll give it a shot. We're not particularly good interviewers, but we'll get better.
I think it'll be a good segment.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing that we'll be kind of updating is projects that we're doing. For me personally, for example, one thing I'm doing a little bit differently this year is normally I do too many things at one time, which is a bad thing in and of itself. But now that I'm working full time, I'm trying to limit the number of things that I do on the side, since I only have a little bit of after hours and weekend time available to do things. So I'm trying to limit myself to 4 things for each of the month as what I'm going to be trying to finish up. And for example, this month, and I kind of put clinical down as one thing that I'm doing, because obviously that's going to take up a largest amount of my time. I've still got some research things to finish off as well. So I'm doing that as well. More interestingly, I've decided I want to learn how to fish. So
why?
I now have fishing thing. Well, very important, because I need to work out how to get dinner next year.
On the boat. All right. Because didn't we have this as season 1? Like the most pointless exercise I can think of is fishing, when you can just go buy fish.
Yeah, except when there's no store.
Yeah, okay. Like I'll give you that. That's functional.
Yeah,
because
I have no interest in like catching a fish and throwing it back. Like that just seems pointless.
It just seems like injuring a fish.
Yeah, like why are we torturing people and then throwing them back? Like,
yeah, like,
dinner,
would you want
I'm on board.
Like a hook in your lip, then someone takes it off, going, there you go, at least you lived. Like, I didn't need to be hooked in the first place. Thanks.
No. I like the idea of spearfishing, but I also don't like the idea of like trying to scare away the sharks from my dinner. So I'm starting easy.
Yeah, fair enough.
And also a bit of crypto projects as well, which I'll elaborate more later.
So with your 4 things a month, how are you defining the 4 things? Like, where does fitness go into it? Where does the routine stuff? Like, is it 4 things on top of?
So this is not, so the routine stuff just stays as routine stuff. And the nice thing is a lot of those are now habit things, which I don't actively think about. So for example, my health thing is 3 times a week PT. I don't really think about it because it's just on my calendar, so it happens. This is more, how do I spend my other time outside?
Okay. But it looks very lopsided if you're doing a 9-to-5 clinical job, or is it part-time, or are you going to be full-time?
No, it's full-time. But I've just kind of put it there because, well, at the end of the day, it is using up a large chunk of time. So these are the things that I will be focusing on. There are some weeks where, for example, I might not be working, but I'm generally trying to fill out the year for a reasonable amount. So I've decided, keep it on, since it is something that will be taking up my time, which wasn't, for example, last month.
Yeah, fair enough. On my project side, look, I've decided the thing that I'm going to do differently is have it in sort of seasons, like not season 1, season 2, but kind of like, summer, winter. I've generally, in the previous years, I by now already have a good idea what my projects are going to be for the year, or where my focus is going to be. But the last 2 years have been kind of the same, because it's just been like this mush of random crises and this, that, and the other, which is not bad. Like, it is what it is. But I thought what I would try and do is have themes, but have them shorter and have them more, instead of trying to do big, huge projects that involves lots of people or lots of travel or this or that, is to try and break it down into small things. And especially just setting out the year, instead of just making it so that I have like a week or 2 to set it, I'm going to actually give myself until the end of next month, because I don't know how the next few weeks are going to go. We're in the peak of the Omicron thing. It's going to be a bit of a backlog. People are probably going to get sick. I'm going to probably have to fill in stuff, and it's not appropriate. Oh, well, as a medical person, it's like, this is the time to go, all right, it's our
Chip in
time
where you
to,
can.
yeah. So instead of focusing on my personal projects, this will be like, let's just get shit done, and we'll look at it at the other side. But
So I
the
have
things
been
that
told that some people aren't very helpful in the hospital like me. Eye surgeons are less useful in ICU.
Hey man, I'm like, they were literally looking for people just to chart fluids. Like, that's how short staffed.
I could do that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, as in, I don't know how bad it's going to be, but I've kind of tried to not pay attention for the last 2 weeks. So I'll find out tomorrow, I suppose. I'm on call tomorrow as well. But yeah, the things that I actually want to do is spend a bit of time in nature, because that Aura Ring heart rate variability thing really kind of tickled my fancy, because it was like a few years ago we went and did that bike ride in New Zealand, and I think it was like 2.5 days, and I came back and I felt like I'd had 2 weeks off. But I wonder if it was because we're in the middle of nature doing nothing but something a bit physical.
And yeah, that's true. It's a bit of a combination of physical, and that track was basically a nature's track. So
one of the things I want to do is just like hire a cabin and be a slob in the cabin, because all you can do over there is, most places have no reception, so you can't really watch Netflix, but it's like read a book. I wonder, does it do the same spike? That's one thing I want to learn. Or like, I genuinely would go for a walk anyway. So it's like, which combo is it? Is it one or the other? That I hope is actually the physical exercise, so that will actually give me more reasons for it. But the other thing I really realized was last year, even though it didn't really change the heart rate variability, the weeks that I spent at home and I learned something were like my favorite weeks. Like, the coding was amazing. So one of the things that I wanted to do this week was actually just do one lesson of the Python course. So I finally got the SMTP lib, which lets you send emails to actually do that. So I'm going to actually get like a bunch of stoicism quotes and like sort of motivational quotes, and just set up a server so that a cloud function, so that it just sends me a Monday one, just as a little project. I'm 90% of the way there anyway. Yeah. So that'll be one. And the other things that I was thinking of is like, fitness is going to be priority number one this year, because it's just been slowly declining as this pandemic's rolled on, and it's getting to the point where like I really got to get back to baseline, because I keep pausing. I keep not going to the gym, because that's where a lot of the exposures were happening. I stopped running because work goes up. But like, look, it's getting to the point where I just can't keep ignoring it. It's been 2 years. It's no longer like I've used up all the buffer that I had.
Yeah. And it's also kind of like, oh, don't worry, I'll do it when it gets better.
Yeah, so you can't keep going. The other two things that I wanted to, like, piano's been on the plate for a little while, and I wanted to do it with a tutor, but it's probably not going to happen for a little while. But I found some pretty cool apps that seem to go through it. So I'm going to try and see if I can learn it myself this year at some point. Probably won't start until Marchish. And after the heli flight today, I was just talking to the pilot, and seems like it might be doable even during a pandemic, now that we're not.
You mean to learn how to fly a heli?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, if you do, dibs on free flights.
Well, because he was saying like, there's different grades. So this would just be like a personal, like, private pilot's license sort of thing. And so I can only have one passenger. And when you're flying, it's like literally all your limbs are doing stuff. So I was like, oh, it's going to be really annoying, because I can't take any of the photos, because you have one hand on the collective, one hand on the controller.
You fly, I'll take the photos. And
2 feet.
Helicopter too.
Yeah. Well, so he was suggesting like, look, if you want to supposedly they have a deal where it's like, I think it's about $500 for a introductory lessons of like 2 hours ish. So you do a bit of theory, you go fly around the city, and then when you're around the city, you actually get given the controls to see if you can steer the heli back into the airport. And then when you get close, instead of landing, what your job is to see is use all the stuff just to hover in one spot. So you basically get full control. So they do part of the one, like guiding you back, etc. But once you get there, the entire job is just stand still. It's just use the different functions to not go up, not go down. And it's just trying to get used to that. And I was like, that actually just sounds fun. Like, you're just, so I might take them up on that offer at some point. And then he was like, yeah, look, it's some people have done it and they thought they were really going to be into it and like, it's not for me, but it's a good taste of all the different skills that you need. Like there's obviously theory and like talking to the control towers and whatnot, but I was like, yeah, like in terms of the mechanics of just being able to fly and being able to control a thing that gets you up into the air, that would be pretty fun. So yeah.
I fully support this thing that you want to learn. You should definitely do this.
Yeah, no personal reasons whatsoever.
No, definitely no, like, outside influence at all.
Well, I mean, that's why I fully support you getting a boat. No selfish reason whatsoever there. And I support you learning to fish and me not doing any of it.
Hey, wait a minute.
You should learn cooking.
No, man, sashimi, problem solved.
You should learn, cutting the fish and descaling.
Actually, that does look kind of cool. Like the proper sashimi cutting. I did want to learn that. Later problem.
You do that. I will happily do the other part, which is taste and rate.
I feel like I'm losing from the heli now.
Yeah, there's no cooking on the heli as far as I know. Well, that's it for season 2, episode 1. So that was a bit of a long chat, but now it's been a little while since we actually did an episode. So again, rate, subscribe, review, share, don't turn on notifications. And if you have any suggestions for our Dr. Wants a Hubby project, or you have any interesting
interview guests.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear any interview guests as well. Suggestions, even if you don't know them, we can reach out to them.
Yeah, so podcast@photosbyraffi.com, or leave us a message, which is the preferred option. Or if you have any random projects like, hey, I've got broken stuff, let's just donate it to charity. We'll see what we can do.
That works for us too.
All righty. Anything else?
I think that's a wrap for episode 1 and the beginning of 2022.
Okay, here we go. Another season. Who would have thought we even would have gotten this far?
I know.
All right. Bye-bye for now.
See you, everybody.